This is Bill Leverton, U Center 10, on the Arizona Road. Geronimo, a name that shot fear through the hearts of settlers in this part of the Southwest. Although he was never an Apache chief, he was a guerrilla fighter of the highest order, but to the white man, he was just a savage murderer. He was hardly the stuff of heroes, but he was the last holdout in 350 years of Indian wars in the West. And here in the high desert and mountain country of southeastern Arizona, it's easy to see why he loved the land so much and resented the encroachment of the white man. But the arriving of the 20th century fell in all around him, and on September 4th, 100 years ago, he surrendered for the fourth and final time to the U.S. cavalry here in a remote place called Skeleton Canyon. This pile of rocks supposedly marks the exact spot. Apaches from all over the Southwest camped in this schoolyard in Bowie, Arizona. They came, it seemed, to find a sense of where they had come from and what all they had lost. It was from this little town that Geronimo and his band of followers were put on a train and sent to captivity in Florida. Oddly enough, a military band turned out as Geronimo left, and they played Old Lang Syne. Well, Geronimo died in 1909, still in captivity at Fort Sill, Oklahoma.
So we are direct descendants alive today. Excuse me, I'm very emotional because my grandfather, I had been with Geronimo's band.
In Skeleton Canyon, Apaches gathered in an emotional review of handed-down memories. At the place where Indian wars in the West came forever to an end, none of them really would answer how they felt about Geronimo the man. Rather, they spoke of what had been lost.
But all in general, he would say Geronimo did not want to be on a desolate area called a reservation, and they were a people that identified with the land. So this is how it is with us still, and we say without our land base, we are not a people.
Whereas September 4, 1986 will be the 100th anniversary of the Chiricahua capitulation.
4 days of centennial ceremonies. They reenacted the cavalry ride from Skeleton Canyon back to Fort Bowie. And the Apaches came and gathered and danced, and the white men came and stared, and they all tried to find some sense of what had happened here 100 years ago. A summer thunderstorm pierces the silence that falls over a pile of rocks in a cow pasture in a lonely place called Skeleton Canyon. Not much of a monument to the turning of such a big page in American history.
Come on, let's go.
Rick Collins is a history buff and one of those who arranged the memorial cavalry ride to duplicate the one that took place 100 years ago when Geronimo surrendered and was taken from here in Skeleton Canyon to Fort Bowie.
For me, I've always had a great interest in the individual's daily life, what it was like. And so this is an aspect that I can experience. I mean, we're talking down to newspaper for toilet paper, Sears and Roebuck, you know, that type of thing. You can study history all day in the books, and you never can relate to what it's like. But when you actually get down and you eat the food, you look at your green salt pork in front of you and go, ew, then you know you've made it, so.
Now, participants try to stay in character as they get ready for the 65-mile, 3-day ride. Not easy to do with all the cameras aimed at them.
Go for it.
And you just have to hope the real cavalry was better at mounting up.
Can you tighten that?
Nearly everybody has an opinion about the Indian Wars cavalry, and nearly all their opinions, of course, are generated from movies and popular novels and whatnot. So it became our sacred mission to tell the story the way it really was. And so we get to have fun and have a sacred mission besides. What could be more perfect than that?
One of the mainstays of military cuisine in those days was called hardtack. Staying with realism, each soldier was issued flour and water and salt biscuit. Well, no sense in roughing it too hard. These were made at a French bakery in Tucson.
Choose left. Two. Route march, follow me.
We know now why they started at 5:30 every morning instead of 8 o'clock every morning, so they could beat the heat most of the day. So, and the food has turned out to be miserable, which it must have been. The horses have been cantankerous, which it must have been, and all of us have nice little saddle sores.
So what started out to be a lark after we started learning some of the history and whatnot, all of a sudden became something serious. We found out that the Indian War soldiers, particularly those who'd been here in the Geronimo campaigns, that were not accorded war veteran status. We felt that it was time that the story was told, and Hollywood was making a mess of it.
A tribute then to a tough group of men who helped make Arizona what it is today. It was not one of the best jobs. They say this is an Apache war dance. The women are dancing too because it was not uncommon for them and the children to go into battle along with the men. This past weekend, Apaches and white men mingled affably in a scene that would have absolutely amazed the last Apache to fight the white man, Geronimo. 100 years ago, on September 4th, Geronimo surrendered to the white man and was sent off to captivity in Florida. The Indian wars in the West were at an end. Well, the Apaches came here and danced, and the white men came here and stared, and many came to find some sense of what it all had meant. Up here in a lonely place called Skeleton Canyon, an afternoon thunderstorm rumbles through the quiet of all those 100 years since allegedly at this pile of rocks, one of the most feared humans in Western history gave up to an advancing tide of white men. Apaches from around the Southwest came here to touch and feel and smell the land that Geronimo loved so much. There were only handed-down memories to share, of course, but they were emotional. And it was a good excuse for this group to reenact the ride soldiers took from this spot back to Fort Bowie after Geronimo surrendered. Perhaps just a little bit more real touch with the saddle sores and bad food of that era than they might have wanted, but another way to get a tangible hold on what happened back then. The dances went on. White men mingled with Apaches. It wouldn't have worked 100 years ago. White men wouldn't have wanted to be anywhere near this place then. And I don't know what they found here. But this pile of rocks does mark a significant page in Western history. It sits in a cow pasture on a private ranch in a remote corner of our state. It's likely none of us will ever be back. And memories, as harsh as they are, have a way of fading away. This is Bill Leverton, Youth Center 10, on the Arizona Road.